with footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, here with our football game plan analyst Gene Clemens in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Gene, now that the week of practices of the East-West Shrine game are complete, we got the game tomorrow, but tonight we're going to break down guys that stood out. So who stood out to you, starting with the offensive line?
Well, you know, on the offensive line, I was really a big fan of what the two guys from Miami did, McDermott and Feliciano. I feel like they really integrated themselves into what they were doing as a team. And it's really important as an offensive line to really function as one unit. I thought McDermott, Feliciano both composed themselves really well in one-on-ones. I thought they were really good in the inside run periods. But they really did a great job of meshing with the other offensive linemen, not really trying to do their own thing despite what the entire unit was trying to do. And I think that helps them going forward because, you know, NFL scouts want to know that you're going to do your job. You're 1/5. And I thought they did a great job of being 1/5 this week.
And you tie right into my point, because I like the two guys from Mississippi State, Dylan Day, the center, and Ben Beckwith, the guard. Again, working well in unison, doing a great job. And the coach joked about these guys being, there's no brother-in-laws going on right here, because they did a great job working well with each other. And it also helps them maximize what they want to do as far as you know, getting their technique down pat. They know how this guy's going to move. They know he's going to pass them off here, as opposed to playing with a guy you're foreign with. So seeing those two guys work well together, and in the one-on-ones, I think Dylan Day was outstanding as far as his strength at the point and being able to move guys off the spot. So I think those offensive linemen, two teammates, did excellent jobs. Now you look at the quarterback position, I like Taylor Heineke of Old Dominion. He had a solid week of practice for the East squad, made all the throws that I wanted to see. A lot of people question his height, and all the guys are basically the same height, seems like, but we know that doesn't matter. But I like what he did throwing the football. Now, out on the flanks, there's some big-time players out there this week on both teams, but for the East squad, who stood out at receiver?
Well, you've got to first notice the giant.
Right,
you know, on Waller from Georgia Tech. He really is a presence. He plays every bit of 6'5", 6'6". I think that type of size, that type of length helped him to create imaginary separation. Not necessarily running by people, but because his arms are so long, he's able to come and pluck things out of the air. It definitely helped him this week, especially in the one-on-ones. And I think that you'll see that pay dividend on Saturday when he's in the game. And going against some really talented West defensive backs. And
that was a big question for him coming into this week, coming out of that option offense, even though we both know that he's going to see a lot of different coverages. He's going to see one-on-one coverage, and he did excel in college when Smelter got hurt and did a great job here. Another guy, small school guy, coming out of the CAA, Trey McBride.
Yes.
William & Mary, outstanding prospect. I think he was the best receiver here. Route running, catching the football, doing what he had to do after the catch in team drills. I think he did a great job showcasing his skill set that made him one of the top players in the CAA this year.
I definitely liked the way he got in and out of breaks. I thought he was very fluid, very under control, and in charge of his body. There were some guys who I felt like on the East and on the West squad that were really struggling to find their form, to find how they fit. He just seemed to have a confidence about him, like, I belong here. Like, this isn't going to be the end for me. And I think that confidence definitely takes you a long way when you're going up against, again, another talented West secondary that we'll talk about soon.
Especially the tight end position. Now, you talk about a guy that separated himself, that showed that he belonged. And there were a bunch of guys out there that did a swell job. But Wes Saxton out of South Alabama, he's about the same size as Waller, but shorter. But he held his own, was in line a lot this week. One-on-one drills, he was able to block very well. We know he's a great route runner, and I like the fact that he was able to extend for passes, get separation on in and out breaking routes, and also catching the football with his hands consistently. I think he had a fabulous week at tight end.
Well, yeah, and this is going to be very big for tight ends because this draft class is full of those tweener guys. It's full of those guys that we know can get it done in the pass game. But there's still some issues and still some talk of whether or not they can function full-time in line. So I think it was valuable experience for him, valuable experience that he gets to put down on film. People can see him play in line and see what he can do, because we know that next week at the Senior Bowl you're going to see a lot of those more top end guys, you know, probably a higher rated than he is, excuse me, that they're going to play in line, and we kind of know what they can do. It's important for him to have a good game on Saturday, I believe, to actually do what we saw him do in practice under the lights. Like, now can you transition that to a game? And so that'll be big for him, but I definitely like what he did this week.
Now in the backfield, I was a big fan of Dominique Brown. I always had to pay attention to the backs, and I was surprised at how big he was. He was about 6'2", 235 pounds, caught the football very well, and I know he split time a lot at Louisville, but I was impressed with how he played. But let's move over to the defensive side. You had some guys that stood out to you, impressive as the week went on. Who was that player that stood out, especially on the defensive end side? Well,
defensive lineman Anthony Chickillo. I really like what he did out of Miami. The question still becomes, is he a 4-3 end? Is he a 3-4 end? I think he's a guy with a high motor. I like his aggressiveness. He's very aggressive, very attacking style defensive end. I think whether you're looking at him as a 4-3 strong side end, or whether you're looking at him as a 3-4 you know, defensive end, I think he's shown that he has value, and he's going to play on Sundays somewhere. Someone's going to pick him up, and I think that he's done a great deal to increase his value. I would not be surprised that if he starts to drop past where many people project him to go, if the Buccaneers don't take an opportunity to bring a hometown kid back to the Tampa Bay area and let him get a shot with the Buccaneers.
Another guy that stood out to me on that defensive line was Darius Smith from Kentucky, who got the call up to the Senior Bowl, we found out today, and he dominated one-on-one in both the rush in part of it and also the pass rushing part of it. So he did well on both ends, and he went against his teammate a lot of times, but also against higher end offensive tackles. He went against Sean Hickey of Syracuse, who also had a solid week, but he did a great job. I was impressed with Darius Smith. Now you look at another guy that played a little bit D-line and also linebacker, Jamario Rasco out of LSU. I was impressed how later on in the week they moved him to outside linebacker, had him dropping in coverage, but I think making that switch, having a great attitude, helped him out a lot, and I think he did a fine job in playing both ends, D-end and also linebacker. Now you have another guy that we talked about this on the show, I'm sorry, Newberry's linebacker, Edmund Robinson, 6'3", 6'4", 240, looks the part, and coming out of a Division II program against top competition, matching up with running backs, dropping in the coverage, doing well, he looked like he belonged. And you spoke about Newberry College at length on the radio show.
Yes, he looked very impressive this week. He looked like he belonged, and for all intents and purposes, we don't know his entire backstory, but he probably does belong. And it's probably one of those things where Newberry was fortunate to have a talent like that. Watching him cover backs out of the backfield, watch him drop on crossing routes, seeing him move, seeing his hips, seeing him close in the run game. I thought he did a great job of putting himself in position to make plays in front of those personnel. We know that for small school guys, they may not get the opportunities that some of these big school kids get, as far as the combines and as far as the pro days, where you've got a numerous amount of you know, NFL teams there at your pro day. But what he did was in front of the most eyes he's probably ever had on him, as far as front office guys, he actually showed up, showed out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does when the lights come on Saturday.
Now, one guy I've seen with the lights on twice this year is Navy's safety, Parrish Gaines, who you thought had an outstanding week.
I really like this guy. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's rangy. The only problem with him, to me, is that you can't get him immediately.
Right.
You know, that commitment that they make to the academy, and we salute all our troops. We love what they do. But that is something that's a flag for NFL teams, because NFL teams, they're not necessarily drafting for 2 and 3 years from now. They're drafting guys, at least they should in our opinion.
Right.
They're drafting guys that they hope can help them right now. I think that if he had the opportunity to play in the NFL right now, you could look at him and legitimately say he's a day two pick, and if not a day 2 pick, a very early day 3 pick.
Now I like a guy coming from that same area of the country, and Dean Marlowe out of James Madison. Great guy, showed combo safety ability, playing one-on-one well, versus Waller of Georgia Tech, he held his own. I was impressed.
Yes, we knew he had the intelligence. We knew he had the character down pat. What we wanted to see is that aggressiveness that you need a safety to play with, especially in the NFL. I think he showed that. I think he showed that in spades, and I think he's earned the right to be mentioned with some of those great FCS safeties that have come out in the last few years, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a roster day one for the NFL.
And he was on our podcast earlier in the season. That's where we got to talk to him. Another guy that I was impressed with was Georgia's cornerback, Damian Swan. Excellent corner. Looks like a cornerback, and they put out some good corners over the last 3 years coming from Georgia. Yeah,
very fluid in the hips, great hands, was able to move well, stick with his guy, did his job. You've got to respect the guy at cornerback who goes out there and does his job. Nothing flashy, not a lot of trash talking. We saw a lot of trash talking out of those East safeties, especially. They were jabbering all week. He was just doing his job, and you like to see that.
Now, another guy in Craig Mager out of Texas State had a great week of practice coming out of the Sun Belt Conference, showed great quickness, burst, fluidity, in and out of his breaks, turning and running with receivers. He did a great job, in my opinion.
Yeah, he definitely put on a show for the scouts, let them know that he was someone that's worth further evaluation. I hope that he can, transition that into the time when the lights come on tomorrow. He can have a good day tomorrow.
So stay tuned for our West Team Awards in a second, but be sure to visit the website footballgameplan.com/2015 Shrine Game.